Welcome back to Switched to Linux. So this is the last Ubuntu 17 video we are going to do. I'm going to talk about the top 5 bad feelings I got with Ubuntu. As you know, last week I did the top 5 warm, fuzzy Ubuntu feelings. There are certainly things that are good on it. I am not a big fan of this new Ubuntu when they did away with Unity, and I agree with some comments that I've seen where some people have actually said, you know, it's like Unity really made Ubuntu kind of its own thing, and I agree with that. Unity wasn't my favorite desktop environment, but it had a lot of good uses. I really liked it, and whenever I had to manage AWS servers or any server that I had to utilize and go into as a root user, I really enjoyed doing that on the Unity environment for that. But as far as general multi-purpose use, I just find Unity hard to use, and likewise I find this setup of GNOME hard to use. And even really any form of GNOME I find hard to use, just because I like to interface off of taskbars and things like that, and those are things I don't get. And yeah, I mean, and I hear it, and I see it a lot in comments, well, this is modern. I don't care if it's modern. I care if it's functional. Okay? Not all things need to be changed for the purpose of change. However, we also need to evaluate other better things to do, and that's why I'm looking at installing docs more frequently, because I did find with my Debian KDE build, installing a Cairo dock on top of having a taskbar was actually a really cool thing. I liked that setup. And so, kind of what I wanted to do is I'm looking at what types of changes you can do. I want to become more familiar with desktop environments. So, what am I doing here with Ubuntu? Well, of course, with my Ubuntu setup, here, then what you see is that I wanted to use it, but I found myself using this less frequently than I use other distros that I have set up for this purpose. Because, I mean, if I consult my library, of course I have the Windows 8 runs on this machine, which never really gets booted into, except if I need something over there. The other internal hard drive in here runs Linux Mint KDE. I have my Debian split multiple KDE, Cinnamon, and Mate. I have an OpenSUSE I can run, which runs OpenSUSE Enlightenment, and then, you know, whatever else I happen to be running, which in this case is the Ubuntu. And I gotta say, overall, I don't really care for this distro. Ubuntu used to be one that people hear about, and it probably will remain. But anytime I'm recommending now, if you want to use the Ubuntu system, use like Ubuntu Mate or something else. So just there's some general things we'll mention here. One thing I'm noticing as I'm recording this, I'm not sure if it's going to come up in the video, I'm guessing it probably will, is that I'm getting a lot of screen jumps and screen tears. Some of this is my video is actually set. You'll see I'm not recording on HD. Part of that's not all Ubuntu, and my camera just crashed apparently. That's not all Ubuntu's problem. Some of this is just the mere fact that the camera's completely dead. Some of this is actually due to the fact that this computer itself has an integrated APU, and I don't have a dedicated graphics card. Let me see if I can get this camera working again now. The first problem is the screen. The screen, it completely just, when I'm playing videos, it doesn't record your playing videos. It doesn't matter if you're on Chromium, doesn't matter if you're on Firefox or GNOME browser, no matter what. If you're playing videos, the screen will still go to sleep. Now, I was able to solve that by installing Caffeine. But when I first installed Caffeine the way I know how to install Caffeine, go to the terminal, sudo apt install Caffeine, it had some issues. Now, I think those were fixed in an update. So when Beta 2 was released, that might have been the time it got fixed. But for a while, the indicator would not work. But Caffeine worked, but the indicator would not work, so I could not shut it off. So the computer was perpetually running Caffeine. So somebody recommended, hey, install the extension. Now, initially, a lot of extensions, we'll get into this more in detail, but some extensions don't work. It turns out that it does work on this one, so you will see at the top of the screen here, I do have the Caffeine extension installed now. The indicator was finally put on there with the extension, but when I went to install the extensions today, it breaks. You have to install the extension manager by running it through the terminal rather than just doing it with the simple on-screen support. So I had a multi-layered issue. The first is the screen wasn't the screen was just kept on flickering off when I'm watching a video, because this is a computer I don't sit here and do a ton of work on. I set it to play media, and then I go to one of the other computers and I work on the other computers. Well, the screen goes blank. That's kind of annoying. I install Caffeine. I can't get the indicator to work, so I can't toggle it on or off. And every time I'd boot up the computer, I'd get an error. I uninstalled Caffeine, and then I reinstalled it via the extension. That seems to have worked, but that's a lot of workarounds to get this screen to work. And usually it should work, whereas in Unity it would work if you're playing a YouTube video, for example. The screen would go blank after the video was over. So that was the first problem. The second problem is that the Wayland does not work with OBS, simple screen recorders, and videos and things like that. That is a problem that is solved on other distributions. I have no problem with Wayland recording video on my Linux Mint KDE computer. I didn't have a lot of problems with it on the Debian system, but Ubuntu, if I'm running Wayland, which is the default, I can't run simple screen recorder. It just records a black screen, and I can't do, as I'm doing on OBS here, record the screen and a video on top of it. Actually, I couldn't even record the screen at all on OBS. To record anything on the screen, I had to go into Xorg. And so that's a problem that Wayland support doesn't seem to be up to date or working well, and that's a little concerning because I thought those issues were solved. And so as of today, I don't know if I've tested it today, but I just said, never mind, I'm just going to go right into Xorg. The good news is, the flip side of that bad news is, the good news is you can indeed run the computer on Xorg, but, whatever, not everybody wants to do that. The third problem, I encountered this one just last night, I can't play DVDs on the system. So some video elements do not work, and that was particularly horrible in that this is a media PC. I can't play DVDs using the same exact method I always do. Drop it in, open up VLC. I couldn't play them through VLC. I couldn't play them through Kodi. You get in there to play the DVD. It doesn't find that there's a DVD there. And I have installed all the media codecs. In fact, I installed extra media codecs because I was trying to extract some CDs that I had that I needed to rip some CDs, and I had to install more codecs even on top of that. So I can't play that. The other place I can't play anything is on Yahoo, the place where I don't have Netflix, and I'm not going to buy Netflix, but a good legal place you can watch stuff in the States is view.yahoo.com, which basically runs a week behind releases on Hulu. So this is a Powered by Hulu event. But you can come over here and you can watch a lot of episodes that are out there. You can catch a lot of things, including some documentaries. You can come over here. But I can't actually view anything on Yahoo View. It just sits here and spins. So generally you'd have to either enable DRM or enable HAL, whatever else you need to do. I've done all that. It just sits here and spins in circles on me. I can watch YouTube over here, but I can't watch view.yahoo.com. So every time I want to catch up on new shows or watch something, evaluate something, which is usually what I do with this, I want to evaluate some new media program that's coming on, I have to log out of this computer, log into another distro, and then I can watch it. And that's one of the reasons why I haven't been using this as much as I generally do. So that's kind of a challenge that I can't watch view.yahoo.com. Okay, the fourth thing, and this is just a general GNOME thing in general, is a general GNOME thing in general. Yeah, I say those things a lot. I combine that together. So you can't customize this, and that's what I hate about it. If I want to not customize my OS, I'll go back to Windows 10. Thank you very much. I don't like that operating systems have been removing the ability to customize things. If you look at, and I get a lot of people commenting on my Linux Mint KDE, they're like, that thing looks awesome. I did an entire video on that. It's just the look and the feel and how I did that. And I gotta say, getting back into Linux after being forced into certain UIs by Windows and Mac, getting back to Linux where I was able to get in and make my operating systems my own, oh, I love that. I forgot how much I loved being able to customize my operating system. Now I'm back to GNOME 3. I can't do anything with it. I can change the icons, but I really can't do a lot else to pizzazz this thing up any more than that. And that to me is just, I mean, this is boring to me. And I know they're like, we want to have a system that gets out of your own way. Yeah, it gets out of my way too much. I want to have a little bit, I want to be able to put the thing in my way if I want, because there's a lot of things I like to do. For example, I run the weather apps on there. Now, of course, I do have the weather extension up here, and this, by the way, was a pain to get working. One weather extension I was able to get wouldn't work at all. This one, I got it to work now, but I had to, it really was a pain to get this actually working. But regardless, it's there, it's available, it's just not something that I like. Now, where might I find GNOME in general useful on? I think if I had a touchscreen type system, this might be a good system, although I'd probably use KDE, honestly, because I think either one has a good potential for being a good touchscreen system, and I don't really like KDE, so why not? So that's my number 4. I can't customize the look and the feel of this. So, and then number 5 is that many of the extensions do not work. And as I had alluded to earlier on in the video, when I came in first, Kitty wants to come up and say hi. Hello, peoples. All right. So you come up here and go into my extensions, gnome.com. Of course, when you first come in here, the extension is not installed. In fact, it was installed, and during an update, they uninstalled it. I clicked the button to reinstall it. You load it back on. It says the extension's installed, but it can't do the connector. So I had to go dig into the documentation, and I had to reinstall the extension through the terminal, and that violates the entire principle of why people liked Ubuntu, that things worked. So it does actually work. It's not a huge step of problems, but at the same token, it's a little bit annoying. And so with that, they kind of made it difficult. And then what I found when I was doing my initial setup, and you can go back and look at my initial setup video, is that some of the extensions just don't work, and some of the extensions actually break your system. And I actually have 2 user accounts on this computer, and the reason is the other user account got broken. The sidebar is completely gone. It kind of works just like traditional GNOME, but at the same time, there's other elements that are broken. I couldn't get into files. I couldn't get into the sidebar right. Are you testing my organs for weaknesses, Kitty? Yeah? Okay. And so I'm a little leery about wanting to install new extensions because some of the extensions I tried to install just didn't work. And some of them actually ended up breaking the system. And so I'm a little leery about installing things, but there you go, we got an error. I don't know what the error is. Anyway, there's an error, whatever. And that's kind of the problem, is that for those that want to use GNOME and want to utilize the extensions and then know a lot more about the desktop environment than I do, you might find yourself in a little bit of frustration and that you may not be able to install the extensions that you want to be able to install, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And so that is another issue. And they've even stated that in the documentation early on, is that some extensions don't work. And so with that, you know, with those things taken together, we have essentially what boils down to a crippled GNOME. You can't customize the look and the feel of it, you know, any more than moving the icons and changing the size of your sidebar. I can't play videos in some sites or DVDs. The screen just goes dark. I think that should be resolved now with installing Caffeine. Wayland doesn't seem to do good support work with Simple Screen Recorder or OBS or any other system I attempted it on. So, kind of taken together, this thing, there's certainly applications for it. It's not like horribly bad, but I agree with people that dumping Unity and going back to their GNOME version here, I think is probably going to lend itself to two major problems. Number one is those people that really wanted that full pure gnomes environment. You know, they'll not have that because there's not the community edition of this anymore running it. And number two, half of what this is that makes it GNOME is broken to begin with. And so I think that this is probably going to be bad for them in the long run, but I don't know. We'll see what happens with it down the road. So thanks for watching. And this has been my video on the top 5 bad things I don't like about the new Ubuntu. If you'd like to help support what we're doing, check out switchtolinux.com/support. We have some PayPal set up. We have Patreon set up. And I'm starting to do more things on Patreon over there for you folks. Also we have some Amazon links there set up. So thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.